back to On the Fly, taking another look at the lines for the upcoming 2021-2022 season. Today's topic will be the Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously a team that has struggled over the last few years to get out of the first round. Obviously, they look really good in the regular season, and then once playoff comes around, they really struggle to get out of it and finally win. So overall, obviously, it's a team that wants to win the cup in the end run. Especially over the coming years with obviously star players like Marner, Tavares, and Matthews. So in general, they do need a cup. I think the fans need some reassurance that there's something going on. And obviously they did make two big signings over the last few days with the addition of Nick Ritchie as well as Ondrej Kase. Obviously both coming from Boston as well as Peter Mrazek coming from Carolina. So I think this is a team that definitely has the potential to win a cup. But I think once they can start winning in the playoffs, I think they'll definitely have a way better shot. Obviously, they haven't won a playoff series since '04, so I think that they need to finally break through, and I think this will be the year that they finally do. And I think once they start to win, I think, as I said, I think they'll go into that snowball effect and start winning more and more and more. And I think once they win the first one, they have a pretty good shot at winning it all. So we will now sort of take a look at the depth chart. Obviously, this is a team that is sort of uploaded, obviously, with the three players over $10 million, with Tavares, Matthews, and Marner, and then Nylander's also at about $7 million. So in general, they are kind of a four-player team. Their defense is also pretty good. That is one of the areas that they had to address last year, and they did it quite well, I think. But in general, their one weakness, I think, is their forward depth. Obviously, not having that many players that they can sign for league minimum contracts. It's kind of difficult for them. And then finally their goaltending, which is sort of shaky, especially unproven. I think the Mrazek pickup was a good pickup. Obviously he had to replace Anderson, as he did leave to go to Carolina. So I think in general, obviously the Leafs are a team that has the potential to win a cup, but they do need to kind of play in the playoffs. Obviously they haven't quite done that in the years, and they are kind of known for their chokes. So in general, I think that this is a team that has the shot at winning the cup. But they have to start playing like the Toronto Maple Leafs can. So we'll now take a look at the depth chart. Obviously, on the left wing, you got Nick Ritchie, Ilya Mikheyev, Pierre Engvall, Michael Bunting, and Nick Robertson. Robertson's kind of that AHL player that has the potential to come up. And I think we will see a little bit of him this year, especially if there are some injuries. One player I do look for to be injured this year will be Ondrej Kase. Obviously, this guy hasn't played a lot as of late. Which is one of the reasons why he didn't receive a qualifying offer from Boston. I think mainly because he's been hurt. He hasn't really proven himself with Boston, so they kind of said, okay, we're going to move on from you. We don't really need you. So I think it's a good pickup for the Leafs. Obviously, I think he will do well if he can stay healthy, but I think most of the year he will be on LTIR. So we will see kind of how that shakes out. But in general, I think it's a really good pickup. Same with the Ritchie pickup, but I think it's a little high on the price, $2.5 for 2 years. I'm not a big fan of, but of course, Dubas has a plan, he always does, so I'd like to see what he's thinking of there. Moving on to the right wingers, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, obviously the recent pickup of Ondrej Kase, Wayne Simmonds, and Curtis Gabriel. So in general, the right wingers are a little bit better. Obviously, the top two are high loaded, as I said before. A lot of big players up front. And then finally, Matthews, Tavares, Kerfoot, David Kampf, and Jason Spezza are the centers. So overall, the forward group is a good group. Nothing too crazy. But they do kind of have that potential to go far. Obviously, with veterans like Spezza, like Simmonds. So with that, I think that kind of provides that little veteran leadership that you need to be a contending team. So I think they have it. I think they just got to try and figure it out how to get there, especially in the playoffs. And I think that the pressure kind of gets to them a little bit. But overall, we'll see how they do with the forward group. Moving on to the defense, with the left defensemen, you got Muzzin, Riley, Dermott, and Sandin. Obviously, all these guys are NHL level defensemen. Sandin started to play a little bit in the playoffs last year. So I'd like to see what he can do in the regular season, especially because with the absence of Bogosian, I think it's a really good opportunity for him to play left side, and I really want to see what he can end up doing. Moving on to the right defenseman, you got TJ Brody and Justin Hall, and then finally Liljegren. So with Liljegren, I see him coming up kind of as that seventh defenseman. I think he will be the replacement for Dermott if at least you decide to trade Dermott, which makes some sense to me as of now. I think your team, maybe like Boston, to pick up a left winger. Obviously, they are kind of lacking a left winger right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Dermott. Obviously, he's one of the players that they like, so I think in general he will be the one that won't be as necessarily looked upon. But of course, we will see. Moving on to the goalies, you got Mrazek, obviously recently picked up. Then you got Campbell and Hutchinson. So in general, obviously you have another pretty solid group of goalies, but the one thing is that they don't really have a star goalie. Obviously Anderson was their guy until he left, and then Campbell kind of replaced him for a little bit while Anderson was injured, and he picked up the pace, and then Anderson became the backup. So I think in general it is a good pickup for them, but with that I think it kind of just works out to be like that. So we'll now take a look at the lines. So with my first line, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Obviously, I said before they're kind of lacking that star left winger. So I'm actually going to throw a right winger on the left side with William Nylander. He has played a little bit on the left side, but I think in general this kind of works out for the best. So Nylander, Matthews, Marner. Obviously the Marner-Matthews staple. I would like to see this line. I could also see Tavares playing the right side, or sorry, the left side rather. So I think with this line is kind of your Armageddon line. Obviously a lot of goals. So we'll see if they get shut down, then they're kind of messed. Then their whole team kind of gets screwed. But when you have the three kind of top goal scorers on your team, I think it's a really good idea, and we'll see if it ends up working out or not. Moving on to the second line, I think we'll see a Boston line where we have Ritchie. So we have Nick Ritchie, you have John Tavares, and you have Andre Kasha. I personally don't think Ritchie is a second line player. I think he's more of a fourth line grinder kind of guy, but I do see him at least getting started and playing with Kasha alongside Tavares. Obviously Tavares is their second line center. I could also see them kind of getting moved down, but I think in the end, the reason why they picked up Ritchie and Kasha is for them to play together. And I think if they can end up Kasha can end up staying healthy, I think this will be a pretty deadly line, and I think that they do have the potential to go pretty far, and will kind of be that really solid second line. Not a lot of goals against, not a lot of goals for, but in general, they'll kind of log minutes for you, while the top line's outscoring goals. Moving on to the third line, I think Ilya Mikheyev. I hope he stays. I like his little meme that he's got going on. You got Kerfoot, and then you have David Kampf rather. So in general, obviously these are players that are sort of that kind of defensive-minded players. They're not going to score you a ton of goals, but they will kind of log minutes. And the truth with this team is that all you need is your top line to score goals for you, and that's it's a sad reality of the Leafs that they don't have a lot past it. It's a lot of guys logging minutes, just waiting for the top line to come back out and score. They will get their odd goal, I'm sure, with Mikheyev, his speed, and then Kerfoot with his playmaking. But in general, I do believe that these three will be kind of just minute loggers. So we'll see kind of where they go from there. And then moving on to the fourth line, kind of a staple there of Engvall. You got Engvall, Spezza, and Simmons. As I said before, these guys aren't going to be terribly goal-scoring-ish, but they will log defensive minutes for you. Obviously, they will score the odd goal. With Spezza, you never know what you're going to get out of him. So I do like to pick up on the Spezza deal. But we will kind of see where they end up wanting to go there. But in general, I think that this forward group does make the most sense. Obviously, line combinations can change on the day, but I think if they can throw these lines out, I think that they do have a really good shot at winning games. And we'll see how they end up doing in the playoffs. And obviously, with Simmons and Spezza, kind of that calming veteran presence, I think will be really important for them. Moving on to the defensemen, I think the obvious first pairing of Riley and Brody. That was last year's pairing, not too much surprise. As well as Muzzin and Hall. So overall, obviously nothing too crazy. I think this is kind of a gimme. Obviously this was last year's line, so I think without a doubt this is kind of what it'll be. And then finally, I think it'll be Sandin and Dermott on the right side. Obviously, he is playing his offside, but he does do it anyway. So I think it would be a very good move. Although the one thing I will say is that if Dermott does get traded, it allows Liljegren to come up, and I would like to see Liljegren and Sandin playing together. Obviously, those are two younger guys that do feed off each other, so I think it would be really good for the Leafs. But other than that, they do have a pretty solid defenseman group, and they also have some veterans on the back end. So with that, I think Brody and Muzzin kind of lead the charge with Riley, obviously the third kind of leader on that side. So I'd like to see, I would like to see Dermott get traded. I think it'd be really good for the Leafs to get rid of him. But of course, you never know. I would like to see him trading for a left winger, preferably, because I don't think Nylander is really a top line left winger. I think he's more of a top line right winger. So we'll see what kind of happens there. But in general, I think this will kind of be what the lines will look like. And then finally in net, I think it'll be some sort of mix up between Campbell and Mrazek. Obviously, these are two goalies that do start a lot, so I think they'll go 50-50, but they might go a little bit 60-40, and I think they'll kind of stay true to Campbell. Although I think Mrazek is the better goalie as of now, they'll kind of play it out. So whoever has the better season, if they play 50-50, I think we'll get the start in the playoffs. But in general, I think this will be kind of the roster of the Toronto Maple Leafs and their line combinations come opening night. But obviously, this is a team that has struggled in the past, and I think that they do need to sort of figure it out before they go too far. But in general, as I said, I think this is a team that definitely has the potential to win, and I think that they will at least give a lot of teams a shot. I think if they play Tampa, I think they'll give Tampa a run for their money. I think they'll give Boston a run for their money. I think they'll give Florida a run for their money. So overall, I think this is a team that definitely has a shot at getting out of the East. There are quite a few teams in the East that do have a shot at the playoffs this year, and even more yet the Cup. But in general, I think this is the Leafs team should and always will be a favorite to win the Cup, especially when you got four guys up front that are kind of streaky players. You never know what you're going to get out of them. So with that, I think the Leafs are a team that has the shot at winning the Cup, but they do have to get a lot of results out of their top lines. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. If you liked it, drop a like. If you really liked it, subscribing, tell all your friends. Leave a comment down below your thoughts on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Until next time, see ya.